All right, we just made it to DNA garage. Gonna go ahead and go in. I'm not gonna take any stuff in yet. Let me go in and make sure they're ready for us. Ready for me. I really feel like just laying down for a nap. But not when I see stuff like this. Every time I see these RX-7's, it's like motivation. What do you guys think of this wing? Should I add one of these to my FD? I hear the sound of porting going on in here. It's a great sound. Oh, just over here, the boys at Cove just sent us this commuter speaker. Apparently, wireless speaker. What you guys don't know about me is I'm always listening to music out here in the shop. When I'm on camera, I can't be listening because of copywriting, but when the cameras are off, I'm listening to music. So this little handy dandy device here with the subwoofer on the bottom, 30-foot range, I can take this to each rack and actually move it with me when I'm working on different cars. So it's actually pretty cool. I also noticed that it's about the size of a soda can, so this will actually fit in the cup holder of your car. How sick is that? And if you click the link down below, you're gonna save 65% off today. Woo! It's more than half off the price. That's pretty amazing, and by doing that, you're supporting us. I'm gonna get my speaker plugged in so I can use it later on today. Let's get back to the video. All right, guys, well, in my excitement to get in DNA Garage and start working on my engine, I actually started working on it without showing you guys what the heck we're up to today. So, we got a bunch of parts in. Here's the engine, if you guys haven't seen it. It's been a few days for me, so a little refresher. Louis already started by putting the fuel injector sleeves into the holes where the stock fuel injectors go on the stock manifold. These allow for tight fitment of our new injectors because they're a different type of injector. And we've also, these are the standoffs for the, what are these, full function fuel rails. And then we are also installing a set of Elite Rotary Shop front cover bolts to replace all these ugly bolts that we put back in. These are the OE bolts. You guys know me, the little detail stuff is what matters. Not only that, I think the bolts are a little stronger. I think they're grade 8 bolts with zinc coating, so they'll stay looking nicer longer. One thing I did find out was I went from a 12mm head to a 14mm head, so I don't know that this front cover doesn't need any special torque or anything, does it, Louis?
No.
Okay, so they're basically for looks, but yeah. So we're going to go ahead and get those installed real quick. I see Louis already got the injectors in place, which is pretty cool. These are our Deechworks 2000cc injectors. We'll have 4 of those, 2 primaries and 2 secondaries, and they'll be controlled by our Haltech setup. So our Haltech 2500 ECU will control these fuel hoses. 2000cc is quite massive. Without proper control, it's too much fuel. But thankfully we've got a really capable ECU that we're going to be setting up with our tuner, and we'll be able to control these and provide the proper amount of fuel as needed. Alright, so fast forward, we've got our bolts installed. They look nice and fancy. And Louis got the fuel rails installed with the injectors in place and the standoffs. These are really nice and really nice fuel rails. Billet aluminum. Got some -6 AN on the end. Very nice. Next up, we're going to try to install this. This is a -10 extension for the oil return, and it goes on the block down here. And what this does is actually brings the fitting out to a place where you can get to it. Nice little piece from Elite Rotary. We're going to toss that on real quick. Oh, hey, Ricky.
Oh. Hello. I made it.
You know what? I'm going to take you guys outside in a little bit because Ricky drove his RX-2 down today. I don't think we've ever showed that to you guys before. It's pretty awesome. 13B, right?
13B.
NA?
NA. Yeah,
we'll go check it out and listen to it later. Oh, Weber carbureted as well. Yeah. Anyway, got the Dash 10 oil return extension fitting or housing or whatever you want to call it installed. Just simple 2 10mm bolts. Has a rubber O-ring on the back side to keep it from leaking, and this brings the fitting out away from the engine a little bit so you can get a Dash 10 on here, and this will go to up to our turbo oil return line. Ooh, that's shiny and nice. Actually, it's not shiny, but nice. All right, so it's been a good day at DNA today. We've had a bunch of packages show up so far this morning. We've made quite a bit of headway on the engine. One box that we've been anticipating finally arrived. Not that we've been waiting forever on it. It's actually a box from Turbo, and it actually came within, I think, 2 or 3 days. So being a heavy box, that's really exciting. And this is a part that we sort of struggled to find something that would suit our needs. We are running a Garrett turbo, and I haven't talked much about that yet. I was planning on talking about that in the turbo installation video, but the turbo that we got is a GTX 35 42RS Gen 2, and the turbine housing comes with a V-band flange, which is proprietary to the Garrett GTX 35 turbo. The problem is finding a manifold that actually accepts that V-band. Most of the manifolds in the market are for a T4 flange, and unfortunately I didn't have the budget to have a manifold custom made for our turbo. So we reached out to the guys over at Turblone. They sent us out one of their cast manifolds, which is really nice. I see it's got provisions here for, I'm assuming these are for exhaust gas temperature readings. We've got dual wastegates, so I have ordered 2 wastegates to go on here, and this is our T4 flange. The guys at Turblone were kind enough to actually gift us a Garrett 1.15 AR turbine housing, so that'll bolt right onto this and we'll be all set. So we're gonna go ahead and probably get this mocked up on the engine and kind of see how it sits and looks. I also have the turbo here, so we can actually try to put that on as well. Today's coming along really nicely. We're gonna have a full looking motor when we leave here today, so yeah. And that thing's the business. It's neat to see a cast part. I actually like cast manifolds because they're not as prone to cracking. You don't have weld joints, which is pretty cool. I'm assuming this is sand cast, not really sure. This little Turblone logo is stamped in the flange. Not sure you guys can see that, but yeah, nice part. Definitely sticks out pretty far from the side of the engine, although if you look from here it doesn't. From the back of the engine it's only sticking out. Wow, this thing's really coming together. Hey guys, so a little update. We've gone ahead and, hey, you can come into your shop, dude, it's okay. We've gone ahead and got a lot more things bolted on the engine. The engine's sitting up on its side, or on its back basically right now. We've got the fuel system pretty much all set up here. This is our fuel pressure regulator, our primary and secondary fuel rails, and we've got all of our fittings in place. We did go ahead and switch over to black fittings on this. The fittings we had were actually gray and or like a pewter color, and we want this to sort of disappear once the intake manifold is over top. So we went with black here. We'll switch over to the pewter probably on the other stuff. Louis is getting ready to put on the metal exhaust gasket and the Turblone manifold. Oh, those 2 wastegate ports are nice. They're expensive, but they're nice. Yeah. So not only do you have to buy 1 wastegate, you have to buy 2 for this manifold, which doubles the cost, which kind of hurts, but it is what it is. Chalk it up to the game. So we've got 2 provisions on the engine that need to be plugged off. There's this hole here, and then there's this hole here for the oil metering pump, secondary oil turbo drain. So we're going to be blocking this off here and this off here. We ordered these block off plates from Full Function Engineering. This one goes in the back like this. You seal that with some silicone, and it comes with hardware to mount it. And then the same thing with this, which is the oil metering pump hole. You remove the pump, and then this block off plate goes into place. I'm thinking these will probably just remain black because I don't think they're going to be visible once the engine's in the car. Normally I would want to paint them silver, but I think they'll be fine in black. So we're going to go ahead and install those now. Alright, so while we're getting the water neck painted up, we're waiting on paint to dry. Ricky's got the Elite Rotary stud kit ready to go. We've got all of our studs, washers with rubber inserts, flat metal washers, and then the nuts for the other side. We're gonna pop one of these out at a time. I know a lot of you guys hosed me in the comment section for not studding this motor. And I explained in my Instagram live feed this morning why we didn't do it initially. We put the stock bolts back in because at the time of the engine build, we did not have the studs in stock. The reason we didn't have the studs in stock is because we didn't plan on boosting this engine to a point where it needed studs. After further consideration, we've decided we are gonna boost the shit out of this thing. So we are gonna stud it. So the studs finally came in. What we're gonna do is we're gonna pull one bolt out at a time. We're gonna go in a star pattern that doesn't affect the torque at all of the engine. Put the studs in one at a time and retorque them, and we should be good to go. We can put the clutch back on, and we can load this thing in the back of my car and get it out of here. Well, not before Rywire comes by and helps us with our Milspec wiring harness today. So we'll have that for you coming up later in this episode. Alright, as you guys can see, the engine is now studded all the way around and we're not ready for big boost. So we're gonna go ahead and get the flywheel and clutch back on. Back end of the engine will be done, and we're gonna call it a night from there, I guess. We still have Rywire that could potentially show up tonight to help us with the Milspec harness that we're putting on the car. Pre-wire it here, so when we take it back to the shop, we can just run the loom through the firewall and plug it into the Haltech. Ricky, what are you doing there, buddy?
I'm just cleaning up your flywheel, brother, before we put the clutch back in.
No, you're wiping off the Mickey spec. Right, TJ?
That's
just
so
getting
funny,
all the fingerprints off of there, all the oils.
I don't know what that mark's there for.
Because we're not rookies, boys. Alright, so we've gone ahead and put the flywheel back on. We're torqued. All the bolts are located so that if anything starts to come loose, we know. Time is it, Will?
Beer time. That's what it is.
It's not beer time. I wish it was beer time. It's not beer time, Will. Good one. Time to put our action clutch on. This is the twin plate action clutch. This thing's rated for 1,000,000 horsepower and 2,000,000 foot-pounds of torque. It doesn't want to go on nicely. What a beautiful piece. Never mind Will's hands.
Got him!
Got him! Alright, it's getting late here at DNA Garage, but Ryan from Rywire has dropped by and brought some goods for the 13B. So we've got this all put together today. It's starting to actually look like an engine now, which is pretty cool. But there's one thing it's missing, and that's wiring for all the sensors and control units that are going to control the engine. So, hi Ryan.
How's it going, man?
Thanks for bringing this by.
Of course.
I'm gonna go ahead and let you talk about what this is. I've brought the Haltech 2500 ECU that we're gonna be running in the car. This was chosen for its capabilities with the 13B and can be expanded to more rotor housings in the future potentially. So we went with the 2500. I'm not gonna get into that right now. I wanna go over what we have here, Ryan. It's basically a Milspec type harness, is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
So, a Milspec harness is going to be something that has motorsport wire and motorsport loom. So this is a Tepsil wire. It's a high heat temperature wire. It's rated, you know, for motorsport use. And then the loom is, you know, maybe familiar to some of you guys, but it's called Raychem, and it's an industry standard in motorsport use as well. So it's a really high heat temp. It's not going to take like direct fire contact, but it will take a good amount of heat, and it's a lot better than some of those expandable looms that you might see on some of the other harnesses. So.
Right. So basically this harness here, Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, this is an off-the-shelf harness. This is not a custom harness made for me. Really, right. There's no sensor harness plugs on here that you're not going to get if... So this is something that when somebody orders it, you go grab it off the shelf, box it up, and ship it out, correct?
All right, almost.
Almost, okay.
So this harness is actually a Adaptronic harness.
Okay.
So we call it the Adaptronic harness on our website. What I did for you, Mickey, is I actually just cut off the Adaptronic plugs.
Okay.
And put the Haltech Elite plugs on it.
Sick.
So
okay.
Really all it was just a pin change and a connector pin out change.
Okay, right
I
on.
just did that for you.
Awesome.
It's something that I am considering doing in the future because I have done a good amount of these.
Okay.
And I normally just charge a little bit of money for my labor time and changing the plugs.
That's awesome.
But this is an off-the-shelf wiring harness,
Dope.
as well as this one right here, which is our ignition coil harness.
What's this scary looking box, dude?
So that's actually a enclosure for some high amp relays and fuses.
Okay.
So it's just, it looks a little intimidating because it's kind of big.
Yeah.
But it's a Busman fuse box.
Okay.
And it can be mounted in the car, right next to the ECU if you wanted to.
Nice.
And
this is very OEM looking as well, which I like. So when this is under the dash, it doesn't really stand out.
Right, right.
This doesn't jump out like a sore thumb, or it's not a bunch of open wires, or...
Correct.
Does this come off?
Yes, it does. We can pop it off.
See how it looks inside. Oh, nice. So this is actually weather sealed and everything.
It's weather sealed, and you see it's not really very populated. So what I have here is just two big relays, and those are 50 amp relays.
Yep.
And we can expand onto this too, or we can add a bunch more fuses, and we can add another relay. So how I have it set up is there's each two coil sets is going to drive one of these 50 amps. So if we wanted to make this a 20B and add 2 more coils, we can add 1 more relay.
What'd you say? Make this a what?
Make it a 20B if you ever wanted to go that route.
Sweet.
Then what you could do is you can add to here. And the engine harness is actually kind of set up as well for a 20B in the sense that we already have 6 injectors on it.
I think what Ryan's trying to tell me is I need to make this car a 20B.
Nah. But if you wanted to, it
can be done.
It wouldn't be like a whole new harness and another visit to it.
Well, that's rad. I mean, I know that that's kind of like what most people aspire to have. Right. So that's cool.
Right. And you actually asked me something earlier about, you know, what's the difference between this harness and like a factory harness?
Right.
Okay. So one key point is obviously the wire construction and the heat shrink and everything that we talked about. Another thing is going to be that the wiring harness has proprietary plugs for the Elite.
Okay.
Right? That's kind of a given as well.
Right.
Now, what makes this end so important? And to be honest, it's all the added features.
Okay.
So, like I said, it's pre-pinned for 6 injectors.
Okay.
Okay. So we have that. A lot of guys with 13Bs, they might just add another rail.
Yeah.
Right. So you have 2 injectors per rotor, but then you have another set. Right?
Yeah. Right.
So it's already kind of done for you.
Okay.
And
Sweet.
then you don't have to like add to the loom. Another thing is like flex fuel, right? Like everybody's adding flex fuel now. So we have a flex fuel already on the harness. All your normal stuff like TPS is going to be on there, things that are, you know, you're accustomed to seeing on harnesses like these. But then it's also going to have oil pressure, fuel pressure, and all the pressure sensor vitals that this ECU is really going to make it thrive. So you'll have all your fail safes with this harness.
Okay, so one of the things I noticed right away, Ryan, is the Raychem. That's dope. You've been over that, what that's about. To me, that screams quality. I don't know why. It's all the race cars I've ever seen have it, and it's cool. The other thing I noticed about this harness is everything is labeled with
Right.
a cool little yellow label.
Yeah, that's
So you
also
really can't screw up.
industry standard for motorsports.
Okay.
So the yellow tags are kind of something that you might see in a full race car, right? You're gonna see the yellow tags everywhere, maybe a motorsport harness, maybe Motec built it, who knows?
Sure.
It's kind of the industry standard to go with yellow. It catches the eye, the technician can read it clearly.
It's very clear what the sensor is that it's hooked up to.
Exactly.
I also like that you have a cool name tag on there.
Yeah, you have to have that, right? Only buy this one.
Really? You have to have that.
You have to have that one, that's required. Yeah.
All right, I can respect that. That's cool. So, I mean, for me, the quality is one thing that jumps out at me. It looks like it's very well put together. We have every sensor we need. We've got our coil and external fuse block, relay block.
Right.
So, what's this third piece?
So that third piece, because this is a standalone harness.
Yep. Standalone meaning it's meant for a standalone engine management system,
Right,
to those that
standalone
aren't
engine
familiar.
management system, and it runs from the ECU straight to the engine.
Correct.
Right? There's no intermediaries.
Right.
And if you are familiar with, well, obviously you're familiar with RX-7's, they have 2 plugs at the ECU, 2 plugs at the body.
Right.
Okay. That, in not having a true modular design makes things difficult. So because this is a standalone modular harness design, we have to incorporate this third piece. So this piece will then plug into the engine harness.
Correct.
Right? No
Yep.
problem.
Gotcha.
This goes into body connectors.
Right. They come down onto the dash on the passenger
Right.
side if you're
But then
familiar.
there's a few loose wires that are going to be required. These are going to splice in at your old original ECU plugs in the chassis.
Okay. Yep.
So we got to hit like power, and if the power and grounds and etc. was all located on these body plugs, it would be an adapter from here to the body plugs, done.
Right.
Right. But just because of the RX-7's construction from the factory, and then us trying to recreate something that's completely different than what's original, we have to get in somehow.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
yeah, that's how it's set up.
So this is pretty much a turnkey setup for what we're trying to do here with a standalone engine management and a built 13B with external sensors that coincide with the ECU.
Right. All the fail safes for the ECU.
So I'm really big on cleanliness. One of the reasons why I chose to use Ryan's harness was because, one, the way it looks awesome, but two, it can be routed underneath the manifold and kind of however we want, as opposed to the old crusty harness that all RX-7's have at this point. I have 2 of them sitting at the shop. They're terrible. Most of the wires are broken inside the shielding. It's just bad stuff, and it looks terrible. So instead of just rewrapping your stock harness and hoping for the best with the wiring, this is a cost-effective solution, and it looks amazing, and you can reroute everything how you want it, kind of hide things and make it look great. So we're gonna go ahead and actually start sort of plugging in some of the sensors and things that we have on our engine and kind of start the routing process. That way when we go to pop this into the engine bay, the whole engine assembly into the engine bay, we're really just feeding the harness through the firewall.
Right. So
And then we'll have to plug in some additional sensors when some other things go on, but
Of course.
it
Yeah.
will make that much easier. So I'm gonna set the camera up. We're gonna start fiddling around with getting the harness on the engine and kind of see how we decide to route it, and we'll show you guys how it finishes up. We're gonna go ahead and call it a day. It's getting late. I'm running on 3.5 or 4 hours of sleep, something ridiculous like that. Thank you so much to DNA Garage for letting me take over the shop again today. I'm always in the way, and they're so gracious not to kick me out. So thank you to them, Louie and the boys, Rochelle, Ricky running solo on Instagram, as always, here to help me out. The boys at Elite Rotary for the stud kit, the oil filler neck, I don't know, all the great bits, the t-shirts. Awesome care package today from them. We got all that stuff installed in the car. Our turbulone intake manifold. Thank you to the boys at Turbulone for solving a problem for us. I'll get into that later. Well, so that's about it, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know today was a little bit all over the map, but we had to get this engine done. The car is done at paint. It looks fabulous, as you guys have probably already seen. But we're gonna be picking that up tomorrow and bringing it back to the Huntquarters so we can start putting this engine in. I'm gonna go grab the Lexus back into the shop and load up all of our stuff. Thank you guys again. Thank you for watching our videos. You're the best. Peace out.